to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Collision from September 9th, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good episode of Collision. Of course, it is the official Collision that, or I should say, it's not really the first. It's really the second Collision without CM Punk, and without CM Punk, the replacement for CM Punk is, of course, Bryan Danielson, and Bryan Danielson is the main topic of this entire show. Of course, the main thing, he officially challenged Zack Sabre Jr. to a match at WrestleDream, the match that we've all been waiting for. We've been waiting for this match for a while, since last year, because if you guys do not remember, that match was supposed to happen at the first Forbidden Door show, but of course, unfortunately, Bryan Danielson got injured, and then we all thought we were going to be getting it this year at Forbidden Door, but instead we got the Bryan Danielson-Okada match. But now we have WrestleDream, and now the match has been official. We will be getting Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., but he's still not done with Ricky Starks, and Jon Moxley entered the fray. Speaking of Jon Moxley made his AEW Collision debut with, of course, defending his newly won International Championship against Action Andretti, which was a pretty good opening match. One interesting note about this Collision show was the first hour, in my opinion, kind of felt like filler to me, and really all the more important stuff happened on the second hour. I don't know if that's going to be a motto going, for the next couple of weeks on Collision. Hopefully that is not the case, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens when it comes to this show. I know a lot of people are complaining that, Collision is basically exactly like Dynamite. I actually do not think so. I thought the show flowed pretty well, on this show in particular. Has there been a little bit of glimpses that this show kind of felt like Dynamite? Yeah, but at the same time, I tell these people all the time because I see a lot of doom and gloom for Collision, especially with the rating that they got last week, because last week Collision got its lowest rating ever, and unfortunately Collision is going to deal with an uphill battle with college football starting and also NFL starting, so it's going to be fucking crazy. But Collision is going to have to face an uphill battle, but I've always tell people with all the doom and gloomers on the internet that CM Punk was not the only guy that had creative input on Collision ever since the show started. Bryan Danielson also has input ever since the show started as well, and he continues to have input on the show. So, yeah, I just want to let you guys know that as well. But nonetheless, I thought Collision was a pretty decent show. Of course, the AEW Grand Slam tournament continued with semifinal matches. Of course, we had Darby Allin taking on Roderick Strong, with Darby Allin losing the match, and before the match even started, Darby Allin got attacked by Luchasaurus, and as expected, Roderick Strong advances to the finals next week on Dynamite. And in the main event, we had Samoa Joe take on Penta Elero in a pretty good semifinal match of the Grand Slam tournament, which saw Samoa Joe, as expected, to advance to the finals. But what's interesting is, even though I like the pairing of Roderick Strong and Samoa Joe is the finals of the Grand Slam tournament this Wednesday on Dynamite, who's going to win the match? Because there's a lot of possibilities as it regards to what could happen. Do you want to do the Samoa Joe match at Grand Slam, or do you want to do the MJF and Samoa Joe match at WrestleDream? There's kind of a lot of conflictions. I mean, you want to sell tickets for Grand Slam, but at the same time, you also have to build towards this other pay-per-view. What sounds like the bigger match? MJF versus Samoa Joe or MJF versus Roderick Strong? Now, granted, there's nothing wrong with MJF versus Roderick Strong, either at Grand Slam or at WrestleDream, considering the fact that the story is there. But me personally, I would have much rather do, in my opinion, I would much rather do MJF versus Roderick Strong at Grand Slam instead of the Samoa Joe match. I'd do the Samoa Joe match at WrestleDream, considering it is the bigger match, and also, when it comes to Roderick Strong, I'd actually do a one-on-one match between Roderick Strong and Adam Cole at WrestleDream. That is just how the way I'd book it, but I'll talk about that later on right here on the Collision review. But overall, I thought Collision was not that bad of a show. There's been a lot of concern about Collision ever since the firing of CM Punk, but honestly, I'm not going to be one of those people that immediately doom and gloom. Yes, Collision's going to get affected in the ratings a lot, and it's unfortunate, but the ratings, in my opinion, doesn't judge the quality of the show. That's my opinion. I don't judge the quality of a show based on the ratings of the show. Yes, unfortunately, AEW is not at a hot period. I mean, their ticket sales, especially for their weekly shows, has been, I don't want to say embarrassing, but they've been pretty much embarrassing. I mean, look at the ticket sales for Grand Slam. Grand Slam, I mean, they sold roughly around 6,000 seats. 2 years ago, they sold 20,000 seats for Grand Slam. I mean, if that is not embarrassing, I do not know what is, and that is just the cold hard truth. But I still relatively enjoy the product. But nonetheless, let's go ahead before we talk about Collision. Of course, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, if you guys had missed it, the WWE SmackDown review is up on the channel. I talk about Jimmy Uso just when he wanted to be out. Jimmy Uso wants back in. That is a little Sopranos reference if you guys do not know. But I talk about SmackDown and the storyline of Jimmy Uso wanting back in the Bloodline, which if you really think about it, kind of does not make any sense. But I'm going to give it time and let it play out, see where this goes, because there could be a twist at the end of the day. But we're going to be seeing what happens. If you guys haven't checked out the SmackDown review, the link will be in the description below. Also, the AEW Dynamite review is also up on the channel. I talk about the fallout from All Out. Of course, we had a lot of storyline progression on this episode of Dynamite. We had an amazing segment with MJF and Samoa Joe. We also had an amazing segment with Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page starting a new feud, which I honestly fucking love. I think Hangman versus Swerve is such a different feud, but it kind of gives you that vibe of 2019 AEW, early AEW vibes, which I actually really like. So a lot of storyline progression on Dynamite, so that was very cool to see. But if you guys haven't checked out the AEW Dynamite review, the link will also be in the description below. All right, let's go ahead and kick off and talk about AEW Collision. As I've stated at the top of this review, basically the first hour was all of the random matches that they were thrown around, because if you really think about it, there was a lot of fucking matches on this show. Tony Khan was like, fuck this, we're going to put a hell of luchadors on this show, we're going to be putting Jon Moxley on this show, everybody's going to be on this show. So Jon Moxley kicks off the show defending his international championship, and I believe this is the first time that Jon Moxley appeared on AEW Collision. So he wrestles Action Andretti for the international championship. This is his second defense of the international championship. His first defense was, I believe, against AR Fox this past Wednesday on Dynamite. Moxley goes for a chop into the corner. We get a right hand by Mox, but then we get a series of overhand chops by Action Andretti. Moxley hits a boot, but then Moxley sends Action back into the ring. We get a kick, and then he ends up hitting a tope on the outside. Action goes for the overhand chop, but then Moxley fights back with repeated headbutts, but then he sends Action Andretti back into the ring. Moxley goes back to the top, but then Moxley misses. We get a right hand by Andretti, followed by a Hurricane Rana by Action, followed by a dropkick. After that, we get a springboard tornado by Action, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Action then later on hits a springboard moonsault on the outside on Moxley, but then Moxley goes for a chop. Moxley then gets sent to the steel steps. We then go to commercial break. Action then sends Moxley to the outside. Action goes to the outside while Moxley runs back into the ring for the tope suicida, and then Moxley ends up hitting the tope suicida. And what happens is we get a clothesline, but Mox is in the corner. Actually, no. Moxley hits a clothesline in the corner, I should say. And then he goes for repeated right hands and ends up biting the head of Action Andretti. Man, Moxley loves biting the heads of guys. We get a springboard by Action Andretti, caught into a cutter by Moxley. We get a cover by Mox and a kick out. Mox then tries to throw down Action Andretti, but then Action, man. We're filming a movie. But Action lands on his feet. Action then gets caught into a sleeper hold by Moxley, but then Mox runs into a pump kick. And then he ends up hitting the drop kick. He misses the running shooting star press, and then he hits the sliding lariat. And then he goes for the, I believe it was a Michinoku driver. After that, we get a cover and a near fall, but then Action goes to the top. Moxley goes for a right hand, but after that, Moxley throws down Action. Action then ends up landing on his feet. He hits the enziguri. He goes for a running shotgun dropkick, and this was the part that I actually really enjoyed about the match. So Action goes for a running shotgun dropkick, sending Moxley to the corner, but Moxley ends up getting up, and then Moxley stands up and hits a shotgun dropkick of his own. After that, Moxley ends up runs into the ring post shoulder first when Action Andretti ducked. Then Action Andretti goes for a beautiful tornado. It looked like it was either from the bottom rope or the top rope. No, it was not on the top rope. It was either from the middle rope or the bottom rope where he hit that beautiful tornado. It was a really good spot. We get a tornado by Action on the leg of Moxley. So he really didn't get the full body of Moxley. He got the leg of Moxley. We get a cover and a kick out, but then Action stomps on the head of Moxley. Blackpool Combat Club style, mocking the way the Blackpool Combat Club does business. After that, Moxley catches Action Andretti because Action Andretti is acting like a dumbass. After that, he catches him in the Bulldog Choke. Action Andretti taps out, and Moxley retains the International Championship. Overall thoughts on this opening match. Again, very interesting that Jon Moxley is on Collision. It's going to take a lot to get used to because we really haven't seen Jon Moxley on Collision. So this is the first time we've seen Jon Moxley on Collision, but it's great that Jon Moxley is defending his International Championship on both Dynamite and Collision because if you really think about it, the International title is really one of the more important titles right now in AEW, and a large portion of that has to do with Orange Cassidy's title reign because Orange Cassidy held that title. At the time, it was the All-Atlantic title, but then it transformed into the International title. Orange Cassidy has done wonders with that International Championship and made it into the position and turned it into the position that it is today. And Moxley is now at the helm of the international title scene, and he is the champion, and he is killing it. So that is great to see. And there was no way Moxley was going to lose that international championship way early. We get a video package on Roderick Strong talking about Adam Cole, talk about how they hung out together, and he was also there for him because he loves him. They are brothers. Hearing him say that about someone else tears him apart. And he is still here for you. And he isn't the one that changed. Adam is the one that changed. He let him down time and time again, and he knows how being alone makes him feel. But it's fine. It's totally fine. Because he will go on to win the Grand Slam tournament, and he will beat MJF, and he will be the new AEW World Champion. But he still won't be happy because he still wants his friend back. Oh boy. Oh boy. These video packages of Roderick Strong are fucking deep. Deep video packages. And, you know, a lot of people immediately assume that Samoa Joe is going to go to the finals and, well, he is going to the finals, but a lot of people assume that he's going to be the one that faces MJF at Grand Slam. Honestly, I do not think that is the case. I actually do see Roderick Strong by some way, shape, or form regarding some sort of fuckery happening in that match and Roderick Strong actually getting the win for him to face MJF at Grand Slam. You don't believe me? Look at these video packages. I think it's pretty obvious that Roderick Strong is going to go on to Grand Slam. That's my opinion. The Samoa Joe match, once again, will be saved for WrestleDream. In our next match, we got Kris Statlander in a TBS Championship Open Challenge. Jesus Christ, AEW loves their fucking open challenges. Her opponent, Robin Renegade, one half of the Renegade Twins. If you guys haven't seen the Renegade Twins, I believe they've been wrestling on Ring of Honor. So like they have been wrestling, you know, for a while in AEW / Ring of Honor, and they're really good. I really enjoy their work. I think they're phenomenal. I think they're great. Both of them have, you know, great chemistry. Of course, they are twins, so they know each other, but they are really good at what they do. And Robin Renegade is no exception. We get a shoulder tackle by Statlander. We get a drop kick, and then Robin ends up going for the double knees into the corner. Statlander catches her, but then Robin tries to hit the enziguri, but then Statlander counters and hits a German suplex. After that, we get the uppercut by Statlander, but then Robin's twin sister, Charlotte, goes for the distraction. Robin Renegade regains control. We get a cover by Robin and a near fall. After that, Charlotte Renegade interferes without the referee looking. We get a clothesline and a back elbow by Kris Statlander, and then she ends up hitting a high kick on Robin. We then get an uppercut into the corner, but then she hits a boot in the corner. Statlander ends up going for a driver, but then Charlotte ends up going for the distraction once again. After that, we get a roll-up and a near fall, and then Robin Renegade face plants Statlander, and then she misses the pump kick in the corner. After that, Statlander face plants her. After that, she hits a right on Charlotte, who was on the apron. After that, Statlander goes for the roll-up, and she ends up retaining the TBS Championship. Then, after the match, the Renegade Twins attack Kris Statlander. And what happens is when they attack Kris Statlander, some familiar music plays. And whose music plays? Jade Cargill. Yes, ever since Double or Nothing, of course, Jade Cargill finally makes her return to All Elite Wrestling. She ends up attacking the Renegade Twins. She boots them, and then she ends up hitting the chokeslam. But what happens is Statlander gets up, but instead, Jade Cargill, being that bitch, as she always calls herself, hits the fucking Jaded down the mat, and the crowd just went absolutely ballistic. Jade Cargill is officially back in AEW and is targeting Kris Statlander and her TBS championship. Overall thoughts on this whole thing that transpired. Of course, Kris Statlander retained the TBS championship, but the bigger story is Jade Cargill making her return. I think this is great. I think with the amount of time off that Jade has, I think it made a lot of people a little miss her a little bit. I've been very critical of Jade Cargill and the way that she has been booked ever since she won the TBS championship last year. I was actually there when she was crowned the TBS champion, but the way she was booked, honestly, if you really think about it, yeah, she had that undefeated streak, but I wasn't really impressed because, again, almost all of her opponents were kind of forgettable, if you really think about it. Nobody remembers a lot of the wrestlers that Jade Cargill wrestled. I'm being brutally honest. I can't remember a single match that I was like, oh, wow, that was fucking awesome. Now, I'm not saying that she hasn't improved, because she is clearly improved in the ring. And she's clearly marketable, and she is clearly the total package. Because she can talk, she has the physique, and she has improved in her wrestling. But again, when it comes to her booking, I felt like AEW kind of treated her from a creative standpoint that she was kind of unimportant, if you really think about it. Now, she's going to target Kris Statlander, and it makes total sense for her to target Kris Statlander, because if you really think about it, back at Double or Nothing, Kris Statlander basically showed up out of nowhere, unannounced, and basically wrestled Jade Cargill in a match, and she ended up winning the TBS championship, and then we were off to the races. But I will say this. I do believe Jade Cargill, if you really want to put the rocket strap on her, I think she should target the women's championship, unless there is a long-term plan regarding Saraya and the women's championship. I mean, there's a lot of rumors of Mercedes Moné. A lot of people are saying maybe Mercedes Moné could come in and be the one to take the belt off of Saraya. Who knows? We have no idea, but there's a lot of interesting developments going on. And Jade Cargill is officially back, and she is targeting Kris Statlander as expected, because she was the woman that took the TBS championship from her. So, yeah, Jade Cargill is officially back, and honestly, it was a pretty cool moment, to say the least. Saraya and Ruby Soho backstage. Ruby talks about how she didn't forget. Her friend cost her the TBS championship. Saraya says Tony is nuts. She lost it. They need to smack some sense into her. And she then talks about how she will be making her re-debut, and she will walk in as a champion and will walk out as a champion. Of course, there's going to be a Fatal 4 this Wednesday on Dynamite to determine who is going to be wrestling Saraya for the AEW Women's World Championship. After that, Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli are backstage with Tony Schiavone in a pre-taped sit-down interview. Of course, Claudio doesn't even remember what happened as to why, Eddie Kingston just despises Claudio. But Eddie Kingston goes for an explanation, and he says he left the independents without doing business and goes to the land of make-believe. And then both men end up arguing, basically saying their side of the story. And what happens is at the end of the day, Claudio or Eddie, one of them, challenge each other to a match, and it's official. It is going to be Eddie Kingston versus Claudio in a title-for-title match for not only Claudio's Ring of Honor World Championship, but also Eddie Kingston's New Japan Strong Openweight Championship. This was expected. Everybody expected this whole thing to happen. Unfortunately, I feel like there's not really a lot of demand for this match, even though I think this is such an intriguing feud. And I wish there was more heat involved in the match, because it was kind of for me, I feel like the way that it has been treated, it was just kind of there. That's just my opinion on things. I feel like AEW should have treated this whole feud a little bit more seriously and put it on actual AEW TV, because if you don't remember, the feud kind of kickstarted last year, and then it kind of took a break, and then they kind of revisited that feud when they first started Ring of Honor on Honor Club. But whatever. We're getting this match at Grand Slam, and honestly, you got to stack the show as much as you can because, again, the ticket sales for Grand Slam are not good whatsoever. 6,000 people at a tennis stadium that holds 20,000 people is not good whatsoever, to say the least. But nonetheless, Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli. It's not official, but most likely it's going to be happening at Grand Slam, and I do expect Eddie Kingston to win the Ring of Honor World Championship, as he rightfully should, because Eddie Kingston deserves his fucking championship. And I know he holds the title in New Japan. Of course, he's the strong openweight champion, but I'm talking about AEW. He really deserves his flowers if you really think about it. We got Bullet Club Gold. Jay White was supposed to be in this match, but I believe due to personal reasons, Jay White was not involved, and he was not on the show. But we have Bullet Club Gold, Juice Robinson, who's fucking amazing, and the Guns, who I used to hate, but now I all of a sudden love, taking on Gravity, Aerostar, and Dios del Inframundo. I think that's his name. Overall, first off, I know who Gravity is, but I have no idea who Dios or Aerostar is. You know, they're people that honestly I barely know, so like, why the fuck is this match happening? But this match was pretty much relatively short. We only had like one commercial break in this match. Colton is in control over Gravity. Colton tags in. Gravity goes for the enziguri. Dios then tags in. We got a lariat by Colton Gunn. Juice tags in. We get repeated right hands, and then they hit the left hand. Andrade El Idolo is watching this match in the back, and we have been seeing video packages of LFI, you know, them trying to really reform LFI. Not Andrade and Rush, but like really, you know, Jose just kind of like, you know, beating the shit out of all these other luchadors like in this whole fucking warehouse. It's very well produced. It's fucking awesome. But we get a thrust kick by Dios, and then we get Gravity and Aerostar with the double team. Colton takes both men to behind. We get repeated rights by Juice. Once we're back in commercial break, Juice is in control over Gravity. We then get a stunner by Gravity, but then we get the double team by the Guns. We then get the double team by the Guns in the corner, but then Gravity tags in Aerostar, and then he goes for the rolling cutter on Austin Gunn. Dios tags in, but then Austin regains control, but then Colton ends up hitting the Uranagi. After that, the Guns hit the 310 to Yuma on Gravity. And then Juice goes for the leg lariat, face plants Dios, and we get a cover, and Bullet Club Gold get the win. And the funny thing about this whole thing was Juice Robinson brought out Card Blade. If you guys do not know who Card Blade, of course, it is the big-ass cardboard cutout of Mr. Switchblade Jay White. After that, we get a video package of CJ Perry explaining herself. Talked about how he left her and he lost himself ever since losing the TNT Championship. And last week at All Out, she wanted to surprise him and help him become a champion again. But at the end of the day, he is so stubborn. And he says, don't leave until you find out. Very good video package by the former Lana by CJ Perry. I wish we had an actual segment instead of a video package. But nonetheless, I thought it was a very well-produced video package. A lot of people are creating fears that they could possibly see the pairing of CJ Perry and Powerhouse Hobbs, which honestly, I don't blame you because I don't want to see the pairing between CJ Perry and Powerhouse Hobbs. I want to see a pairing with CJ Perry and fucking Miro. You know, I feel like I think they're on the verge of really building that, you know, because if you really think about it, Miro in, you know, these past couple of promos, if you really think about it, Jesus Christ, my hair is fucking crazy. But if you really looked at a lot of the evolution of Miro's, you know, singular like room promos that he has been cutting throughout the past couple of years, ever since he debuted this whole Redeemer character, you know, he would talk about his God and his beautiful wife, and then as the months went by, and then when he lost the TNT Championship, he started to deny God. Hell, he even started to deny his wife, and then he started to call his wife, like, what was it, a double-jointed wife, all that shit. And then she makes her return at All Out, and now, you know, we're seeing another side of CJ Perry that, in a way, we kind of seen in WWE TV, but we haven't seen, you know, this other crazy serious side of CJ Perry. And I feel like they're trying to build towards, you know, the reunion of CJ Perry and Miro. I may be totally wrong, but I'd prefer that over CJ Perry pairing with, you know, a guy like Powerhouse Hobbs. That's just my opinion because, like, again, you know, CJ Perry and Miro just fit so well together as a group, and it would make no sense for her to pair with the heel, even though they've kind of teased something at All Out. That's just my opinion with things, but it was a very well-produced video package. We get another video package with Dark Order. Of course, it was kind of like this little motivational promo. It was kind of like an advertisement. Very reminiscent of the very first and the early, very reminiscent to the very early Dark Order promos in the early days of AEW Dynamite. So you can tell Dark Order is going on a more serious tone. We get a video package of the Acclaimed. So many fucking video packages. Jesus Christ. They've been Trios champions for 14 days, and they unveil the Acclaimed World Tour, and their next stop is Grand Slam. Meanwhile, in our next match, we got Rey Fenix taking on Angelico. Again, AEW is going heavily with the Lucha Libre on this show, which is great to see. I love Lucha Libre. And there's clearly, I feel like there's some sort of direction as it comes to LFI and all the luchadors, in my opinion. That's what I do see happening. But nonetheless, we have Rey Fenix taking on Angelico. A pretty random match, to say the least. I mean, this match really did not need to be on the show. Me, personally, I would have much rather booked this match on, like, Dynamite or something, you know. But it is what it is. We get a spinning kick by Fenix, followed by a drop kick. Fenix goes for the tope on Angelico, but then Serpentico goes for the distraction. We get a spinning kick by Fenix, but then Fenix sends Angelico back into the ring, but then we get the springboard by Fenix, but he ends up missing. After that, Fenix sends Angelico back into the ring. We get the springboard. We get an overhand chop, followed by a second overhand chop. Angelico goes for the backbreaker. After that, we get a stomp by Angelico. Angelico is in control over Fenix, but then we get a kick to the back of Angelico, followed by a springboard arm drag on the into a double stomp by Rey Fenix. Off the top, Fenix hits a frog splash. We get a cover by Fenix and a kick out, followed by a kick by Fenix, but then we get a kick again to the back of the neck of Angelico, followed by a back elbow by Angelico. We then get a roll through. We get a crucifix. After that, we get a right hand. Fenix gets up. We get a thrust kick by Angelico, but then Fenix goes to the top. He runs the ropes, and he ends up kicking Serpentico, who was on the apron. Phoenix goes for the roll and cutter, and then we get a cover and a kick out. Phoenix picks up Pentago, or I should say he picks up Angelico, and then he drives him down. We get a cover, and Rey Fenix wins the match. Pretty random match, to say the least. This match was probably on this show to kill time, to say the least. Nothing really special on this match, to say the least. I like Rey Fenix, but this match was nothing special. FTR is backstage. Cash runs the list down. They talk about how they were in the greatest trilogy of all time with the Briscoe brothers. They beat the Guns, Bullet Club Gold, and now they beat the Young Bucks in front of 81,000 fans. What is the next? What team is there next to step up? Dex says next week they feel like they should be in the main event. Or I should say this week they should have been in the main event. But they need more contenders and challengers. They offer the FTR World Tag Team Challenge next week. And they will face a random tag team next week. And yeah. Who knows what's going to happen, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Hopefully this is not just something random that AEW loves doing, because, you know, when it comes to these open challenges, they're fucking random as fuck. But hopefully, you know, it elevates the tag team that they're wrestling against. And I believe they revealed the actual tag team that they're wrestling against. I'm not sure. After that, we got Roderick Strong taking on Darby Allin in the semifinals of the Grand Slam tournament. This was a very, very, very good match. Clearly, they're looking high at Roderick Strong in this whole storyline when it comes to Adam Cole and MJF, and he's playing a big role in this whole storyline. I loved the entrances. You know, the camera followed Roderick Strong walking backstage before he comes out the stage, and then he walks in the ring. Same thing as Darby Allin. Darby Allin was skateboarding, coming into the ring, but what happens is Luchasaurus attacks the shit out of Darby Allin. He picks up Christian in, I believe it was a torture rack position, and Christian comes in and he says he will never be a champion as long he is in AEW. And then Luchasaurus sends Darby to the steel door, and then Darby is down, but Strong is in the ring with the Kingdom, and he thinks he got a bye and immediately won and will go to the finals of the tournament. And what happens is Darby ends up coming out. And he goes in the ring, and the bell officially rings, and the match is on. Strong, it was all Strong really throughout the majority of the match. Darby was getting fucking killed, man. These spots were insane. So Darby tries to fight back with a series of rights and lefts. We get a roll-up by Darby, and then we get a near fall. What happens is we get the elbow suicida by Darby. Once we're back from commercial break, Darby takes out Strong on the outside. Strong then catches Darby, and then he sends Darby to the steel post, but then he throws Darby onto the barricade. Strong then sends Darby back into the ring, but then Darby goes for a guillotine on the ropes. After that, we get a roll-up by Darby and a kick-out. Strong ends up picking up Darby, but then Darby goes for the not the superplex, the crucifix. We get a near fall. He then tries to go for the code red, so he's really all in desperation at this point. So he goes for the code red. We get a near fall. Strong then transitions and counters into an STF submission. Darby then gets his hand on the bottom rope, but then we get a chop by Strong, but then Strong takes Darby to the top. We get a right hand by Strong, but then Darby tries to fight back, but then he scratches the back of Roderick Strong. Darby goes for a coffin drop attempt, but Strong pushes Darby. Darby is still on the top. Strong goes for repeated rights to the back of Darby, but then he drives Darby onto the top turnbuckle, which was fucking brutal. The most brutal spot in this entire fucking match. He literally, drove. It almost looked like he had a backbreaker, but instead of hitting it on his fucking knee, he hit that shit on the goddamn top of the turnbuckle. There's a reason why they call Roderick Strong the fucking messiah of the backbreaker. That is the reason why. Darby is down on the outside, and after that, once we're back from break, Darby is back in the ring. Actually, no, both Strong and Darby are on the apron. Darby goes for a stunner, sending Strong to the outside. Darby goes for a coffin drop on the outside after that. Nick Wayne, after that, who came out with Darby Allin, is surrounded by the Kingdom. But AR Fox comes to his aid. Both men argue. And after that, Darby sends Strong back into the ring. We get a boot by Darby, but then Darby runs into a kick by Roderick Strong. After that, Darby counters Strong into a Scorpion Death Drop. The Kingdom try to interfere, but then AR Fox tries to go for the Shooting Star. But what happens is the Kingdom pushes Nick Wayne, and by accident, AR Fox hits the Shooting Star on Nick Wayne, which causes more problems down the line. After that, what happens is Darby is on the top. We get the coffin drop, but then Strong gets the knees up. Strong then goes for the end of Hardick, and what happens? We get a cover. Strong wins the match, and he advances to the finals. Nick Wayne then comes to the aid of Darby Allin, but then AR Fox tries to come in to really help Darby Allin, but what happens is Nick Wayne pushes AR Fox and clearly is pissed off about the miscommunication with the Shooting Star press, and there's a lot of issues stemming between Nick Wayne and AR Fox, clearly because of the fact that Darby Allin has forgiven AR Fox very quickly. Powerhouse Hobbs, we got a backstage segment with him, or a video package, I should say. Every man has its limits. He took the Redeemer to the limit, and he proved he prays to no man. But he looks at the book. He looks at this book. Of course, he's talking about the Book of Hobbs for guidance. And last Sunday, we saw who the real winner was. This chapter is still unwritten, and everybody will fall to the Book of Hobbs. Oh, Jesus Christ. I am so fucking tired. Keith Lee is backstage. Surprisingly, Keith Lee is backstage. Of course, he's planning on doing things solo on AEW Collision, and there are certain individuals avoiding him. Now that he is here, he is the Collision, and he is the one, and he must advise to all of you, run. Nice little nod right there to Bray Wyatt. I love that. But Keith Lee is now on Collision. Hopefully they book him really good. I feel like this could be a chance for Keith Lee to really break out if they really decide to utilize Keith Lee very well, because let's be honest, if there is anybody that came from the WWE that ended up having a disappointing run in AEW, unfortunately, it's Keith Lee. Yeah, you can say he was a former tag team champion, but let's be honest with ourselves. Like, really? Like, Keith Lee really didn't do anything in AEW. We get a video package of The Righteous. Interesting video package. They've been, of course, part of the Ring of Honor brand. After that, Bryan Danielson. Yes, Bryan Danielson has his own segment. The question is, what is next for the American Dragon? Talks about how he told his daughter that once she turned 7, he would start finishing up on his career. And she is 6 right now. And he's a man who keeps his promises. But guess what? Time is running out, and we get a series of no chance by the crowd. After he said that, I really got like paranoid. I'm like, bro, ain't no way this man is going to retire in a year. It's very sad. Even though I do respect, his decision as to why he would do it. But still, I do not want to see Bryan Danielson retire. It's going to be the saddest day ever. But what happens? Time is running out. We get a series of no chance by the crowd. That being said, He will not go gently into that good night. And if you think I will fight the Cyclops and I will kick everybody's head in. And of course, because if this is his last year and if this is his final year, this will be the most epic year of his whole career. And guess what? He will be the one that calls his shots. And his next shot is 10-1, October 1st. Seattle, Washington, WrestleDream. He wants to fight the guy that calls himself the best technical wrestler in the world. Zack Sabre Jr. Yeah, Bryan Danielson has called out Zack Sabre Jr. We should have gotten that match last year, but Bryan Danielson got injured. Of course, in one of the early Honor Club episodes, Zack Sabre Jr. was wrestling on Ring of Honor. He flat out called out Bryan Danielson, which everybody expected that we were going to be getting that match at Forbidden Door this year, but we ended up getting the Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson match in the main event. Now, it is official, and we're going to be getting that match at WrestleDream. Already, you have fans excited for this fucking pay-per-view. I am really excited for this match. This is a match I've been wanting to see for a while, and we're finally going to be getting it. But after that, Ricky Starks comes out with Big Bill. And he says it's pretty fitting that you were on Collision and he has to sit in catering. The attention always falls on the other person, and he needs to get attention. And after Sunday, he think he got everybody's attention. He puts everybody on notice, and after Sunday, he immortalized himself and as the man and as the face of Collision. The person that could do things that Bryan Danielson couldn't do. And of course, when he didn't tap him out, when he woke up and his face, he saw the blood, he realized something. He graduated from being hungry to being greedy. And he will take because it's his nature and that is what he does. But then Bryan Danielson replies, he says he wishes if he was patient, he wishes he was patient because he wasn't done yet. He saw what he did on Sunday. And you know what? He approves, and he will say this in the BCC. If you want to be with us, you got to bleed with us. And Sunday, but what happens is immediately interrupting Bryan Danielson, Big Bill attacks Bryan Danielson. Starks then pushes Big Bill off, only for Starks to immediately go after Bryan Danielson. Then Moxley comes in, and then he tries to go for the sleeper on Big Bill, but then Bill hits a boot on Moxley, and then Starks ends up choking Bryan Danielson. What could this lead to? Now, we know we're going to be getting the Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. match at WrestleDream. That is all official. The graphic is already up there. But one thing that I will say is clearly I do believe there's going to be a rematch between Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks. And I think the perfect way to book that rematch is at Grand Slam, considering the fact that Grand Slam is only a couple of weeks away. I believe only 2 weeks away. And if you really think about it, we got Jon Moxley taking on Big Bill for the International Championship this Wednesday on Dynamite. What is Bryan Danielson going to be doing in the build-up for that match? Could we eventually see, on the Collision next week, maybe Moxley and Danielson taking on, what's his name again? Ricky Starks and Big Bill? Who knows? But I do expect that we will probably see a rematch between Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks at Grand Slam because I feel like it's in AEW's nature to do that, and I think it's the right decision to make. And after that Ricky Starks match at Grand Slam, you can then focus on the Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. match at WrestleDream. That's just my opinion on things, but nonetheless, this was a phenomenal promo. WrestleDream just got crazier. I mean, it's just started to get crazy. I mean, this is the first match officially announced for WrestleDream, and I'm glad that they announced one match in advance for WrestleDream because, again, you really got to build for that pay-per-view, man. I don't want this whole pay-per-view to be built like All In because the build for All In was quite lackluster, if you really think about it. So hopefully AEW does not make the same mistake, but nonetheless, we officially have Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., and I am very excited. Big Bill, in the backstage interview, he says, Jon Moxley, he's the toughest guy we got. And he just went there and beat his ass. And this Wednesday night, he will beat his ass again. And he become the international champion. Then the Lucha Brothers come in, and then Ray Phoenix says he has a score to settle with Moxley. And then Bill says, why don't you worry about your brother? And of course, his brother Penta will be facing off against Samoa Joe in the semifinals. Moving on, we got the main event. We got Samoa Joe versus Penta El Cero Miedo in the semifinals of the AEW Grand Slam Championship Tournament. And the winner will go on to face Roderick Strong this Wednesday on Dynamite. And the winner of that match will go on to face MJF at Grand Slam. We get a thrust kick by Penta. Then we get a series of shoulder tackles by Samoa Joe, followed by repeated right hands by Joe in the corner. We then get a kick by Penta, followed by a drop kick once again. Joe is on the outside, but then Penta goes for the baseball slide, but then Joe walks off. Penta lands on his feet, but then Penta goes for a sling blade on Joe on the outside. My apologies, I just yawned. We get a kick by Penta, and then we get a chop by Joe repeatedly, and then we get a headbutt by Joe. Joe then sends Penta to the barricade, but then Penta gets sent to the ring post. We then get a chop by Joe, and then by Penta, and then by Joe again. Both exchange shots. Joe pokes the eye of Penta, and then we get a kick to the knee of Joe. Penta then sends Joe to the barricade, but then Penta takes out a table from under the ring, and that table will be in heavy usage later on in this match. Once we're back in commercial break, Joe is in control over Penta. Penta goes for repeated enziguris in the corner. After that, he goes to the top. He goes for the roll through, but then he runs into a back elbow by Joe. We get a cover by Joe and a kick out, but then Joe works on the head of Pentagon. After that, we get a series of chops by Penta, but then Joe catches Penta, and then he drives Penta face first onto the top turnbuckle. We then get the snapmare by Joe, and then we get a chop to the back of Penta, but then he ends up going for the elbow drop. Joe goes for the cover and a near fall. Joe ends up going for an enziguri. He takes Penta up, but then Penta fights back. He hits the crossbody, and then we get a kick to the knee of Joe. Penta then goes for the backstabber. We get a cover by Penta and a kick out, but then we get a thrust kick by Penta. Penta then runs into a power slam by Joe, but then we get a cover and a kick out. Penta ends up going for the enziguri, but then we get a clothesline by Penta, followed by a thrust kick into the corner by Joe. We get a cover by Penta and a kick out. Then we get a kick to the head of Joe, but then we get a kick to the back of Joe, and then we get a cover by Penta again and a kick out. Penta is in control. Joe gets up. We get the inverted atomic drop by Joe, but then he follows up with a boot, followed by a senton. We get a cover by Joe and a kick out. Joe goes to the outside. He tries to walk off, but then Penta ends up going for a thrust kick off the apron, which was fucking sick. Penta then goes for a somersault on the outside on Joe. Penta goes for the somersault. Joe ends up walking off. After that, Penta lands through the table on the outside, but then Joe takes Penta back into the ring. We get a cover by Joe, and Penta kicks out. Joe goes for a series of chops. Joe catches Penta in the coquina clutch, and Penta taps out, and Joe wins and advances in the finals on Wednesday night on Dynamite against Roderick Strong. Overall, not the best match, but it was a match that got the job done at the end of the day. Overall, not a bad match whatsoever. It got the job done. Samoa Joe, as expected, is going to go face Roderick Strong. But I will hold your horses. Hold your horses, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't think it's pretty obvious as to who is going to win. Either you have Samoa Joe win and go after MJF at Grand Slam, and then you have the Roderick Strong and MJF match at WrestleDream. I honestly doubt that will happen. I definitely do see the MJF and Samoa Joe match happening at WrestleDream because, honestly, if you want to sell pay-per-view buys, I think that is a much greater main event than MJF versus Roderick Strong. If anything, if I was going to do anything with Roderick Strong, I'd rather book a Roderick Strong and Adam Cole match at WrestleDream. Now things would get more interesting. But me personally, I do believe that Roderick Strong is going to beat Samoa Joe this Wednesday due to some sort of fuckery, either involving the Kingdom or maybe some miscommunication. We have absolutely no idea. But if there's anything that we can say is that Roderick Strong has, I don't want to say reinvigorated his career, but he finally really serves a purpose on like a major storyline or a major wrestling angle, and he's doing such a good fucking job with it. I mean, like, bro, the way he wears the neck brace is fucking hilarious. Not only that, when it comes to, if you really think about it, Roderick Strong, I've always said this for weeks, but Roderick Strong, his strengths are in the ring. But really, these video packages that AEW has shown about the history of Roderick Strong and Adam Cole, really, you can tell he's really improving more often on the microphone. You really love to see it. But nonetheless, Joe gets the win, but who wins this match to go on and face MJF? My bold prediction, I see Roderick Strong facing MJF at Grand Slam, and Samoa Joe at WrestleDream, because I feel like if you look at it from a business sense, it makes more sense. But yeah, that was my AEW Collision review from September 9th, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show. I thoroughly enjoyed the show for what it was. It was a great show. The first hour kind of fell flat on its face a little bit, but the second hour definitely redeemed himself at the end of the day. And overall, it was not a bad show, to say the least. So yeah, that was my AEW Collision review. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications. I'll be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And, as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.